Oh, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Trevor has a beanie on, which represents how terrible the weather is
Yes.
right now in Michigan, the Midwest as a whole. I feel like we're like a month behind on the weather. It's not fun. And hopefully, it's one of those things, guys. If it wasn't windy, it'd be a beautiful day outside. Uh,
Mhm.
but of course, we have to deal with the wind, of course. But no, we have a lot going on here. All right, it's not football season, but man, I mean, we have hot, pressing topics on anything from a gambling quarterback to the end of live golf as we know it, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. Pistons just won Game 7 over the Magic, coming back from a 3-1 deficit. And then Jerry has us with a very interesting new agreement between Duke and Amazon. First of its kind, I would say.
Mhm.
No, I mean, kind of. Maybe second of its kind behind Notre Dame and NBC. But very similar in that vein of it is new when you look at it as in the streaming world. So we'll talk about that a little later on. But guys, we'll start with the gambling man at Texas Tech. Isn't it only fitting gambling man in Texas? And it just fits right. It just flows.
Guns up, baby.
Brendan Sorsby took the wrong gamble. He had a bad beat, whatever you want to say. This guy got caught.
We've all been there.
We've all been there, right? But he got caught doing what you're not supposed to do as an NCAA athlete, and more importantly, as a guy who just transferred to Texas Tech. His NIL deal was reportedly $6 million. 1 million of it had to go back to Cincinnati to repay the rest of his NIL deal from there. He's expected to be their starting quarterback this year. He has stepped away from the team to enter a residential treatment program for gambling addiction. That is kind of what broke the story about a week ago, just over a week ago. At the same time, multiple reports say he is under NCAA investigation for allegedly placing thousands of online bets through a gambling app. A lot of this time, these guys don't think they're going to get caught. Vegas knows what goes on. They understand how it goes and how it works. Even if you're using, um, your mother's account or your brother's account or your dad's account, it doesn't matter. They're going to find you. That's what their job is supposed to do. So why this is serious, the NCAA has strict rules prohibiting athletes from betting on sports, especially college sports. Reports indicate some wagers may have involved games connected to his former school, Indiana, during his redshirt freshman year. There's been no public allegations of game fixing or manipulating outcomes, but eligibility concerns are significant. So, yeah, supposedly he was betting on games as a backup at Indiana. Is like and that's the biggest thing coming out of it, not just he's had all these bets or whatever. It was uh, being on the team, playing or not playing, doing bets. So this is what's happening next. The NCAA is right now reviewing his eligibility, which will determine suspension length, if any, or season availability. Right now, nobody publicly knows whether he'll play in 2026. It feels like he's not going to. He just hired a lawyer as well. So he's going to try and fight that a little bit. But his current status is uncertain. And now Texas Tech has to pivot. And I don't know what happens with the money. That's the other thing with the NIL money. I have no idea kind of what happens there. Does he have to pay it back or whatever? We'll figure that out. But he's not the only guy recently who has been exposed for gambling violations. 6 former basketball players from NCAA schools, including Arizona State, University of New Orleans, and Mississippi Valley State, were banned in 2025 after investigations found game manipulation and betting related schemes. 3 more players from Fresno State and San Jose State lost eligibility for betting on games and manipulating prop bets. So, yeah, I mean, this stuff's serious. The NCAA is going to take it seriously. And I think the other thing, too, is this guy has a serious problem because the reports are, let me find it. He's done a number of, I want to say it's close to 10,000 bets in his time. This guy is, me and Jared were talking about it a little bit. He was like, what, betting on pitches during baseball games?
I saw that. That could be fake, but he just 10,000 bets in any span of time is a lot. That's a lifetime worth of bets, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know what their average is.
He's placed more than 10,000 wagers and at one point averaged 20 bets per day.
Yeah, that feels like we've hit like a lifetime of gambling in X amount of year stretch, right? Like 4 or 5 year stretch now.
Yep.
We think of that is right. Like, and I think that's what makes this story so hard to like really grasp everything because there's, like you said, Caleb, so many wide ranging consequences of it. So I'm going to try to put these things in buckets, and we can try to figure out the bucket we want to go to first. There's like the mental health slash like addiction part here, which we're glad that Brennan's going to a place to try to make work on that. That is a challenge. It's also a reality, right? When it comes to gambling, gambling's become more legal. You have these prediction markets, etc. This is a symptom of that. This is not something new, and it happening with an athlete is kind of something that was going to happen at some point, right? Like with this now being as easy and as accessible as it was. I'm not happy that it's Brennan Sorsby. It could be anybody, and it would be a sad thing, right? So there's that one sense, and it's a real conversation that will continue around both sports, but just I think people in general. So you go there, you go to the eligibility, NIL, legal aspects of this, and that gets really weird. Caleb, you mentioned that Sorsby's brought in an attorney. Jeffrey Kessler is the guy that's representing Brennan Sorsby, and it's important to know that that this guy is representing him because this is not just like some good lawyer. This is the guy who was on the NCAA House case, the one that you hear about now when it comes to like roster management. It's like, oh, the House settlement, this and that. He's one of the guys here. Remember Bountygate? Yeah, he was a lawyer in that case too, right? So he's done some high profile cases in the past. And it also tells me that this is something that they're going to take and fight very seriously. I think that legal fight will also determine a lot about how future, and that's probably our last bucket, eligibility takes shape. Because the question is obviously, will Brendan Sorsby play this year? If he does, what does it look like? What does the punishment look like? Well, you have this really fractured system of like NIL payments that are pseudo contracts, but not pay for play contracts that are going on. But they basically tell the player they need to be at the place at the time in the space that the college is at, right? And you do like these X amount of things to get your money. Um, how this plays out in court, I think, is really going to determine how other situations like this happen because I do not think this is a one off. Maybe Brendan Sorsby specifically in terms of having this gambling addiction might be more of a one off. And again, that's something we hope gets better. It's not something you want to root for or anything like that, right? Yeah, I'm not saying 100,000 kids in the NCAA are going to have gambling addictions, but you might have 50 to 100 who are placing bets at some point, right? With how easy this is. And we are still talking about 18 to 22-year-olds. They do dumb things. We all did dumb things from 18 to 22. The level may vary, right? This kid is just a multimillionaire who is now going to a program that is trying to vie for national relevance and just made the playoff last year, right? So we haven't even gotten to like the Texas Tech part, which will probably end up last. But I think how this plays out in court will determine what future penalties look like. So Sorsby also becomes this like big case. Like when we talk about the Supreme Court, it's like, oh, they go back to that case all the time for any ruling like this. The NCAA might go back to the Sorsby case if another kid in a different sport gets caught gambling, or they're caught gambling on other teams, or they're caught gambling on their own team, etc. So there's so many things coming together at once, and it's just such a college football story at the end of the day because there's so many different questions and buckets to go through. But at the center, this is I think 22 to 23-year-old kid. I know he's been in college for a couple years now. That his life has turned completely upside down. Somewhat by his doing. I don't want to act like this is completely free will. Like not he couldn't do anything, but we want to acknowledge addiction is real. It's serious, and it's something that's hard to play around, talk about fairly. So there's so much that's going to fall out from this, and I really am curious how this plays out in court. I'm glad it's going to court now because if this had to wait like 3 years from now, the next time we run into this, I hope there's more logistical ways to think about it and we'll have some precedent. And now with this already going that legal route, we'll probably get there quicker.
Yeah, obviously the biggest issue about this is the betting on your own team kind of idea, which I think is the biggest factor to maybe him potentially losing like permanent eligibility, or permanently losing eligibility. And from what I was looking at, there's been a lot of like kind of broad reports about what the NCAA. Obviously, they haven't said what they're actually thinking, but the punishments for something like this are so broad and wide. It could be, half a season, or it could be you never get to play in the NCAA again. So I am really interested in how this will turn out. I don't know. I honestly think Brendan Sorsby was one of the most popular people I think coming into the next college football season. So could this be a Manziel situation? You sit a couple games, you come back, and everyone loves you again, or could this be a bigger issue? I don't know. Um, but in my mind, betting on your own team, there's things wrong with that because not only he wasn't playing right, he was a backup at Indiana, but he still has some sort of inside information potentially. And this just reminds us all of the Pete Rose, the
Yep.
entire Pete Rose thing, and how he never even got to be in the Hall of Fame because while he was alive, because he bet on his own team, and apparently he bet for his team to win, which that's just kind of I guess it's not as egregious as like throwing the game or whatever. But and Brendan Sorsby wasn't even really in a position to throw the game in Indiana, so there has been no reports of him, trying to throw games or anything like that. The biggest, I guess, the red line issue is that he was betting on a team that he was currently on, and that is a big issue. And I think that's something that the NCAA is going to take very seriously. Either A, slap on the wrist, or B, kind of set a precedent, like Jerry was saying, is like we'll have almost zero tolerance for this because, like also Jerry said, this is probably going to be a bigger and bigger issue as betting and online gambling becomes more prominent in our society.
He's also the first big name guy, right? Like we had, like I said, we had the 6 players and then the other, what was it, 3 players. So we've already had 9 players suspended for or, lose eligibility over similar situations of gambling. Those were a little bit deeper in what they were manipulating games. And then you had what was the Iowa State kid or whatever. He just lost eligibility total and then, had to move on or whatever. So yeah, he's the first big name guy, and so when he already has a gambling addiction, you're like, all right, he just likes to bet on other things or whatever, he just has a really bad problem with it. And then it starts to come out, okay, is that Indiana? And then it makes you think, all right, was he doing it when he was at Cincinnati? And then, now you move forward with it here. So in response to him hiring an attorney, this was Albert Breer said this 2 days ago. His camp is doing this to accelerate the process. They want to see if the NCAA will negotiate a settlement on suspension. If not, Sorsby will likely go into the supplemental draft. Supplemental draft is usually in early July. So that's going to be the other thing that plays into it too. How does the NFL kind of handle this, especially with them being involved with gambling companies? They're in bed with gambling companies at this point. So how do you kind of do that? What's a similar situation? So I have a similar situation with Terrell Pryor. This will kind of be, if he loses eligibility, this is kind of the process that is going to happen. In 2010, Terrell Pryor and several Ohio State players were found to have traded team memorabilia, championship rings, jerseys, awards for tattoos and cash in what became known as Tattoogate. Didn't know there was a name for this. The NCAA ruled Pryor had received improper benefits and suspended him for the first 5 games of the 2011 season. Before serving the suspension, more allegations surfaced involving cars and benefits. Pryor then decided to leave Ohio State in June of 2011 instead of returning. That decision made him ineligible for the regular NFL draft because the supplemental draft deadline had passed. So instead, he entered the supplemental draft in 2011, where he was selected in the 3rd round by the Oakland Raiders. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the path that I think Sorsby thinks that he's on right now. And I will say, too, this is a guy who was viewed as the #1 quarterback in the transfer portal. And so, he's expecting to have a big season, play one more year in college, get paid the $5 million, and then maybe be a first-round draft pick. There are many teams that believe he has talent to be a first-round draft pick. So it'll be interesting, but I think the biggest thing, to Jerry's point now, we have to figure out how big is this gambling problem? Can it be overcame? And then where do you kind of go from here? Because I think that's the biggest thing. And it's the unknown, and it's the precedent that will be set. I'm assuming that he'll never play again in college. That'll be my guess. Just because I don't think that they can just give him a suspension and be like, all right, yeah, you bet on some games, even if you didn't play or you didn't. Yeah, we'll give you 4 games. They have to go all out here. They cannot mess around and just say, yeah, I get you were a backup, but, yeah, okay, if you bet on your team, even if you want them to win or not, then you know what? Yeah, we'll give you 4 games. Well, then every backup's going to just be like, you know what? Why not? I think we're going to play this team, and I think we're going to win. I have the inside information, and yeah, we're going to have this trick plays or whatever. We're going to come out, we're going to play. We're an underdog. Put $20,000 on it and win big. They can't have this as a precedent set of like, all right, yeah, it's fine. So I likely believe that his college career is over. And now it kind of goes into more legal battles of Texas Tech wanting their NIL money back and what goes from there. And then does an NFL team take a chance on him in the supplemental draft? And then now we have another quarterback in the quarterback class that we didn't think was very, very good.
And I think it's interesting, Caleb, that you brought up the tattoo gate, infamous tattoo gate, because one of the big differences is that the NCAA is not winning in court like it used to.
Nope.
And the NCAA's enforcement is way weaker. This is what makes this moment feel so critical, is that for the first time in a while, you haven't had a case where I think the general public looks, if the NCAA were to say, Brendan Sorsby, you have lost all your eligibility for gambling on games that you are a part of a team, right? And we have a strict policy against gambling, especially for this, right? Let's say that's the outcome here. And let's say the court agrees, right? That would be a rarity right now. The NCAA is losing eligibility battles left and right, or going like 50-50 in state courts, right? The House settlement is a prime example of the change of this world from Tattoo Gate. Right now, for the most part, if you wanted Terrell Pryor could do basically what he just did years ago and call it an NIL deal.
Yep.
That's the world we're in here now. So those punishments, I don't think play out the same. Like maybe, the enforcement of like, we didn't like this, you don't do it might go there. But that was a world where like Terrell Pryor didn't go to court. And if he did, he didn't win. Right. So this is what makes this moment so fascinating, is that we're kind of going so backwards where the NCAA is becoming the common man and becoming the common man argument of like, oh yeah, that makes sense here. We haven't had that in a while. Usually the NCAA is on the other side of this, where kids are making no money as television and everything else exploded around them. So that makes this fascinating. And the other weird little side door that I think this opens, watch out for the renewal of the spring transfer portal. Supposedly, there's not supposed to be one anymore, right? That was the new rules. One transfer portal for football now. It's in that weird December period when like 4 million things are going on. And of course, you got to worry about the portal as well. And it's not supposed to be a spring one anymore. But what is stopping a kid from unenrolling after spring practice from institution A and enrolling in institution B? That might be the game Texas Tech has to start playing, because like we've mentioned, right, Sorsby was the number one kid in the portal, one of the top kids just in general in this portal class that people were keeping an eye on. And now, if you're Texas Tech, you have to assume he cannot play this season. Like you have to at least prepare that way. And now you have no major backup, at least backup option that is the best kid football in terms of quarterback wise in the portal. So that might also open that weird kind of window that I didn't believe that this no spring portal was going to happen in the first place, because of the example I just enlisted of like, just leave school, go to another school. Yeah, that's how you're going to stop that if you're the NCAA. And I think that might happen again because of this case. And that could also then lead to a whole different world of chaos that was supposed to be stopped by one ruling. So we very much are in the wild, wild west. We've talked about this for now about 15 minutes, and there's still about 8 more questions we can ask and talk about. So, Brandon Sorsby's made himself the face of college football, at least for the offseason for a while, because everything that comes with that decision in the court, in the NCAA, transfer portal, whatever, pick your thing. It's going to be, it feels like it's setting some type of precedent or putting us in a new reality. And I could see this being one of those cases that leads to a whole shift change in the sport because of all the different things we're trying to think about at the same time. If these kids are employees, this might be, half of these problems might go away. So now the risk problem here of like, do I really want to spend $5 million on a quarterback when I could just have him have a gambling addiction and I don't know if I can get my money back? Well, maybe now those weird NIL deals turn into employee contracts. Like this might be a backhanded way that we get this thing going through, which who knows? This has now opened up a really weird set of doors, and all the little like problems that have just kind of festered and we've lived with, they now rear their heads again because this case opens all those doors again.
Well, this is also before we move on here. This is also the worst nightmare for the NCAA, the schools, all the major sports leagues, NFL, NBA. This is the worst that they want because they want to take the money from gambling companies. They need the money. It's easy money. Everybody wants it, and this is always the problem. Is oh, you have this going on, this going on. The NCAA is trying to do the no prop bets for college at all, that type of thing. So it's the worst nightmare, and it's one of those things where it's like, all right, it's like, oh, not everybody's doing it, and then it feels like every so often more and more comes out, or a big name like Brendan Sorsby happens. Creepy Photo says that dude just looks like a tool. Yeah, I mean he just looks like he looks like a guy that bets 10,000 times a day, I will say. And then he said, Jerry, also, I know a little out of topic, but what do you think of the Southside Samurai? Can't lie, dude, is aura.
Hey man, we took through 2 out of 3 off the Padres, which I had no expectation we would do. That's scary. Um, I we're not back, but the fact that we're sniffing 500 after the last couple years,
They're not
beautiful for me.
bad, Jerry. They're
They're
much
fun
better.
bad. They're
They're
exactly fun bad, which is what I wanted them to be all year.
they're much better. They have some players, some young talent, and you never know what's going to happen in that division. Anything can happen. But you have the Southside Samurai. What a nickname for that guy.
There's a whole different controversy because, like, I guess he may or may not like that nickname. Who knows? But it's a good one. We're pro Muni in this household. Period, though. So
So
God's team.
you gotta go with that nickname. All right, moving on now to Live Golf. It's dead, maybe forever. Who knows what's going on? Their money is kind of dried up. The Saudis have backed out. That's the biggest thing that we learned. The Saudis have backed out. They're still looking to get new partners. I will read some of the statement. Live Golf, the global golf league, blending world class competition with entertainment and culture to grow this game worldwide. That just sounds like a people that don't understand what's going on in the world. Today announced new board appointments. So they have a whole new board. So Saudis ran it. They were part of the board. They're completely out. They have a whole new people into this. As the league focuses on securing long-term financial partners to support its transition from a foundational launch phase to a diversified multi-partner investment model. Um, I think that's the biggest thing is they're now trying to continue this thing without the Saudi money, and I don't see how that happens. Um, and I think the reason that they're trying to do this is because majority of the guys on this tour are not going to be welcomed back to the PGA Tour, I think, as easily as some might have thought. And you have guys like Phil Mickelson's a great example where he was going to PGA Tour events and recruiting guys to go to live at the same time. So a guy like that probably never be on the tour. You have a guy like Bryson DeChambeau who wanted $500 million to resign with Live before this whole thing went down. And then you had guys like Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed who they left early and kind of slowly being welcomed back. Brooks had to pay a heavy fine and, some different things that he had to go through, and that money he won't be able to get. And Patrick Reed is still waiting, and then will be able to be joined back. So it's just a mess. I just think it was one of the biggest failures, I'd say, in professional sports. It was one of those things that Greg Norman, who was the former chairman of this, wanted to destroy the PGA Tour so badly because of his personal vendetta. And he found a backer in Saudi who was trying to wash their hands clean with sports in America. Clearly, that didn't work. And now, with problems going on in the Middle East, their money is it's not drying up, but their money is drying up to a point where they're not trying to wash it with sports anymore. They're just like, whatever. We have to kind of pivot with some things. And clearly, this didn't work. And when you're starting to lose money, you go to the thing that is least profitable, and Live Golf was that for them. So it's just very funny how what it's been like, 4 or 5 years this thing has been going on. It's never really gained a whole lot of traction. They didn't really do anything well. Yeah, they did kind of make the PGA Tour change some things, but they really didn't change golf like they wanted to. And at the end of the day, it was just loud music and shorts, I think is what everybody has been saying about it and what will be remembered of it. But just billions of dollars blown in the world.
That's capitalism, baby. Like that's what we do around here. You know what's new? Make sure, yeah, mic's on. Every time I turn my mic off, I forget if I have it on or off. So it's really a fun find out halfway through the sentence. But I do think the lasting impact of Live will be the changes to the PGA Tour, like the revenue sharing and stuff like that. Um, but this was kind of, I don't want to say the thought, but like everyone knew this was not making money. It was not finding ways to make money. I mean, you know how hard it was to find a live golf event if you really wanted to? It was like hiding on the CW somewhere. It wasn't easy to find. It didn't have social traction. Like even Bryson DeChambeau, it's not like he was out there promoting live golf or like he was kind of getting this little like fun YouTube world. He was promoting Bryson DeChambeau, right? And that's also like one of those many things. I'm very curious for like the middle tier of golfer here in live guys that walked away from the PGA for the initial money, right? And still got their back, right? This was generational money for some of these guys that let's say they're not welcome back or it's not worth their time. It's not like they're walking away broke, right? But the middle tier of golfer at live that you don't really remember, you don't think about anymore, is going to be, for me, the most curious and fascinating case for the sport. Because if you're Bryson DeChambeau, you're John Rahm, you're fine, right? If you have to pay a fine, you'll pay it no problem. Or if you have to earn your tour card a little bit or do some weird things, you'll get there. And the PJ wants them back. As much as they won't say that publicly, they know having those guys back on your random August, weekend when you have a nice race between Bryson DeChambeau and Scotty Scheffler, that's going to get more eyeballs than even Cameron Young, or pick whoever you want right now. But everyone knew this was like if the Saudis stopped funding, this thing would kind of go away. And that's kind of where we're at right now. But the changes to the PGA Tour and the conversations that had to happen to keep the PGA Tour strong, I think are what's going to be lasting legacy, because I do weirdly kind of appreciate how it made the PGA better and it forced the PGA to be better to its players to some degree. Even if now you look back at it, it's like, oh, there wasn't really a big competitor. There was concern here, right? And there was things. And now, in a backhanded way, all this billions of dollars spent made, I think, the premier tour of golf better and will hopefully make the sport better 10 to 20 to 30 years out. And that change may never happen if you don't have live at least knocking on the door and walking in the house and, dirtying up the carpets. They may not have taken over the house, but right, you had to clean some stuff up. You realized that maybe the security system wasn't as great. So they put some things together. They made things better. And now I think for the long term and longevity of the PGA, it's a better league. It is a better tour for those golfers and for the sport in general. So weirdly, kind of a win for 80% of people. Didn't expect that to be the outcome, right?
Well, it also, I think the biggest thing if you're going to have a rival league in any sport is the ability to get your players to go to that tour. And Liv was able to do that. There was at a time where PGA was highly concerned about, players leaving. They didn't know who was going or who wasn't going. And then you get guys like Rory having to like kind of throw himself in front and be like, no, like, lead the charge. If like, no, we're going to stay. This is what we do, but you need to make changes. So, Jerry, I think that's a great point because, the PGA Tour is never going to acknowledge that. And nobody will. Rory will not. Tiger, who said no, probably won't either. But, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is there was definitely a cause for concern at a time because nobody knew what was happening or where they were going. It kind of came out of nowhere. And it was like, oh, this golf league's starting up and, they're going to do this and that. And, oh, who's going to play for them? And then it was this guy shelled out a lot of money. And to your point, the big name guys, yeah, you have to fight for your card back. You probably won't be on the signature events for a year. You'll get some invites. You'll play in the majors. You'll pay 5 to 10 million or whatever it is. For the middle tier guys, you'll probably go to Q School, the Corn Ferry Tour, work your way back through that way. I think having these guys go to the DP World Tour and just having them play in Europe and just say, all right, go play over there, earn your card that way. So there's many different ways. That's what Patrick Reed's basically doing. So there's many different ways, but yeah, it is a great point where it's like, all right, PGA Tour is never going to acknowledge it, but yeah, Live did help shift in a way of like kind of bringing it up to modern day of like, all right, like the revenue sharing, like the social media money for top 10 in social media, you get a buyout. So yeah, when you look at it, there was, and at the time there was concern, and now everybody's laughing at Live Golf just because it's just one of those things that they were so serious about, and they thought it was going to be great, and it just never fully panned out. They are going to plan on finishing out the season, and then after that, I don't think anybody really knows what's going on because the Saudis are done with it.
I saw. So I'm looking at. There was an estimation of $5 to $6 billion spent since 2022, so 4 years. And with no path to profitability for 5 to 10 more years, TV deals, tickets, and sponsorships cover maybe 10% of those costs.
Wow.
So what basically is happening is that even if Live survives, which I don't think is very likely, it's going to look drastically different. Instead of $20 million purses, we're going to look at like a $4 million purse. And the idea that we can sign these guys for $100 million is just not going to be possible anymore. So probably the number of events will decrease. Like I said, the purses will decrease, and maybe even the amount of players in Live will decrease. And that's just like the only way they can survive. But I think it's pretty unlikely. Definitely the version of Live that we have seen for the past years is done. Can it survive? It is possible. Like I said, there are a few changes they can make. But I don't know. Not very likely to me.
I mean, it sounds just like it'd be like the Corn Ferry or Q School,
Right.
basically, is what
Yeah.
already goes on lower levels of PGA Tour, essentially the minor leagues. So yeah, that is crazy. $5 to $6 billion, and only getting back not even $100 million for that money is wild to me. But yeah, hey, it's just one of those things. Saudis tried to buy their way through sports that way. They've done a lot of different things. Live Golf was, of course, their more high profile one, and it just did not pan out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Bryson, the John Rahms, that type of guys in the future over the next 6 months for sure. All right, NHL playoffs. No more Connor McDavid this playoffs. Made it to back-to-back cups, didn't go. He also said that his team said they were a mediocre team and really had no expectations to really do anything. Something along those lines is what he said. He said, "What else do you expect for a mediocre team?" Tough for him being regarded as the best player in the world. But looking on the West side of the bracket here, the Avalanche versus the Wild. Game 1 is tonight. Golden Knights versus the Anaheim Ducks. Game 1 is tomorrow. Very interesting when you look at it. Many believe that the Avalanche will, I don't know if they'll avalanche their way to the Cup final, but have more of an easy path. And then looking at the eastern side of the bracket, the Lightning and Canadians are currently playing in Game 7 right now. I have no idea what the score is. Let me
1-1 right now.
It's 1-1. What period, Jared?
Second period, about a minute 50 left.
So yeah, so that is the only one. That's the only game and series still going on from round 1. Winner will take on Buffalo. Of course, Buffalo makes it in for the first time in 14 years in the playoffs, and then knock off the Bruins in Game 7. And then the Hurricanes are up 1-0 on the Flyers. That first game was played last night. And the Hurricane are also viewed to kind of waltz their way, I would say, to the final. So everybody's expecting a quick series there between them and Philly. But yeah, so I think Jerry brought it up last week. It's the Connor McDavid thing of like, all right, you're supposed to be the best player in the world, one of the best of all time. You've made it to the Cup final back-to-back years. You are the bridesmaid, not the bride. You, of course, lose gold medal game in the Olympics this year. You tried to be He-Man in greatness, and you got burned, and you lost. And now you lose in the first round. You're a year older, and you're calling your team mediocre and no expectations to win. So I think that's the biggest story.
Well, like there's a lack of big names now too, right? We're Sidney Crosby list, we are Connor McDavid list, which is also fun, right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? Because now new players and heroes get to take shape, right? Even if these series do feel kind of like, oh yeah, this is ball game, right? But yeah, the Connor McDavid discussion just continues to get weirder and weirder, right? Because it is hard to argue he's not the most talented player in hockey, and that his one-off moments of brilliance are so fantastic that you're like, I see it. But if there's any year, right, you've done the work, you've put in everything, and you couldn't get past Florida for the last 2 years. They're not even here right now. They're sitting on the couch. They watched they watched your first round from the luxuries of their homes. And you know what you did? You did not move past, right? And hockey's a weird sport. It is very weird how we talk about stars to some degree because of the quick but intense amount of play you go through, right? You're playing for about 90 seconds if you're lucky. Then you sit down for a little bit, then you go back, right? So it's hard for me at times to always put it on like one guy, this and that, but like he, in my mind, is still the face of the sport, and you're having the face of the sport struggle. That's not an NHL problem. If you're NHL, it's actually a great thing, right? Because there are going to be new heroes and all these great things that come from this that we get to see here. But what else can you ask for, right? Yeah, at what point is it not the team? Is it also you? And it's never good if you're throwing your teammates on the bus. I don't care what it is, what situation, and I don't care if you're Jesus Christ playing on the ice. Like if you're throwing everyone else around there, your teammates are looking like Trevor just did a second ago, like, huh? Yeah. So it's gonna be very interesting. We're gonna a lot of people. I really want this Carolina Buffalo series. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun. It's two fan bases that I feel like really, really deserve it. Nothing against Philadelphia, or whoever comes out of this game 7 between the Lightning and the Canadians. But I feel like that would be very, very fun for the sport. It would create a lot of awesome moments.
So the Sabres, they have a 14-year curse. Is that like what in the?
What was
What is
that?
That was my foot. I hit something.
Dude, that sounded like a reverb through my soul.
Yeah,
That
no,
was gong.
it's like my microphone stand. So I hit it with my foot, and it makes a loud ass noise. Wait, let's see you again. Yeah.
Wow.
It's our gong.
So is their curse is that they haven't won a Stanley Cup, Lord Stanley Cup in 14 years?
No, so they hadn't made the playoffs in 14
Period.
years.
Oh,
And so this year they finally made the playoffs, and then they won in the first round.
And they're the blue and white team with the Buffalo.
Yeah, the Buffalo.
As you can tell, I've really done my research.
And I say your week of watching hockey, like we said last week, is going great.
Yes, I am now learning the logos of the teams. Who do you guys think is going to win tonight?
If I'm using my math here, 2 seeds have been terrible. Give me the Canadians. No 2 seed here also in the second round, by the way, unless the Lightning win.
Oh, see, I'd go Lightning.
I'm just doing the fact that no one else in the 2 seeds wants to figure it out this year.
I would
The
just,
Stars haven't figured it out. McDavid and the friends. Look at Pittsburgh.
I would just go off of experience with the Lightning, and they probably have arguably the best coach in Cooper. Nolan's a good man. Trev, good man. Of course, great work. So before we move on to the NBA, I have the odds right now for the Cup winners. The Hurricanes are favorites at plus 220, and then it's the Avalanche at plus 250, and then it's a big drop off. Golden Knights are plus 700. So it's pretty much like I said, it's the feeling of like, all right, we're going to have this collision course of two good teams. And the Avalanche, of course, won the President's Cup last week or this season a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, it's a really good collision course. But it'll be interesting to see as we move forward. All right, now moving on to the NBA. I think we'll start with the Celtics losing last night.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Lost to the 76-year-olds.
Pretty much that's what it felt like. Joel Embiid looked like he should have won the MVP over Jokic years ago. He played like that, man. Celtics, of course, blew a 3-1 lead. Jason Tatum didn't play in Game 7. That's not an excuse because he did play the last 2 games where they've been miserable. They live and die by the 3, and when their 3's not rolling, for some reason they assume, let's just keep throwing them up. They looked like Brick City, and I was telling Trevor and Jerry before this, there was a moment where there's like 4 minutes left. Jaylen Brown comes down the court, has the center wide open for an easy dunk in the paint, and instead of throwing it to him to give his team a 1-point lead, he throws it out to Peyton Pritchard for a 3, and it is a brick. It is not good. And I will say, too, Tyrese Maxey, I don't know how fast he is, like how fast he can run up and down the court, like what the time is, but he is so quick. The way he could just cut through the hole. And I will say too, Philly was on a tear of like they couldn't miss the last 3 games. So I give them credit. You know, the Celtics was on a good team, and I think the Knicks are going to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Maybe this
I feel it.
76ers team, they did something that we haven't seen them do all year, and that's put everything together finally. Because this team, like, this has been the thing about the East. The East is very all over the place. It is very wide open, and like anybody right now, including the two teams that are playing right now between Toronto and Cleveland, you can honestly make me a case for anybody in the East to end up in the finals. I truly believe that. Part of this is the person who has really shown up, even if it hasn't been as like sexy, Paul George. And weirdly, I think that 25 game suspension for whatever he was doing may have been a helpful thing long term. Because instead of having Paul George on those random Tuesday, Wednesday games, putting up 30 plus minutes and beating himself down, he was playing fantastic defense in the latter half of the series. And that really helps, right? These were not all crazy high scoring games, even by NBA standards. Let's be clear, right? Like this, even game 7, 109 to 100. Nowadays, that's like a 70 to 75 game, it feels like, with some of the bigger scores that you could see here. So you could tell if you told me, hey, Philly could figure it out for 4 more on a Knicks team that is, in my mind, good at a lot of things, great at nothing, right? So like, I don't see a bunch of big weaknesses, but I don't see like oh my God, the Knicks are 10 times better than the 76ers at pick this thing. You could totally tell me right now you could see them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I believe you. And I think there's a fair case. The same way you could tell me the Knicks can run them, but like that's been the kind of the East as a whole. I mean, we lost the 2 seed. Detroit, I had questions about last week. They decided to turn around. Orlando decided to collapse and return too, right? Like Detroit, the team that I thought was, almost dead to water, a young team that has all this talent, figured out in the second half of this, series. And in this game 7, did the things the experienced team does. Yeah, they let Orlando kind of hang around, but not really. They got up in that lead and they conquered. And that's what great teams do. And I was really impressed by that because that early half of the season, you're like, oh, God, this is the Orlando team that had not figured it out all year. They're starting to hit threes. Cade's playing good, but he's coming out a little late. Jalen Duren's not figuring it out. And that second half of the series, Orlando just fell apart. And Detroit took advantage. That's what you have to do as a good team. They came from like that back down from 25 points in one of these wins on the second half here. That's what you have to do. And if whoever they run into in this 4-5 game 7 here of again Cleveland Toronto, is going to be a weird matchup too. Whoever you put there. So the East is wildly, wildly fascinating, and a lot of fun to watch. This has been one of the more fun playoffs in my mind. Even if we'll talk about the West in a minute. The West kind of feels more chalk long term. The East is just chaos, and we're getting some fun moments out of it.
I don't know if Joel Embiid can survive another entire series. Caleb said he, like Caleb said, he played very well. He did play very well. But the dude looks like he is in so much pain, especially that last game. So I don't know. I think with how the Knicks Hawks series ended with that, huge, I don't even know, blowout, I guess. Um, that we were texting about that. That was kind of hilarious how brutal that was. I turned it on and it was like already 62-19 or something. And I was like, what did I miss? Detroit figured it out. Like I said, I guess I am a Detroit Pistons fan. I've always had a bit of affinity for the Detroit Pistons. Caleb knows that I'm a big Bad Boys guy.
No.
I like that area in Detroit. So actually, Bill Laimbeer was my idol when I started playing basketball because people would go up for layups and I would just punch them as hard as I could in the face. And
that adds up.
Yeah, I wasn't very good. Oklahoma City and Los Angeles. If Luka can come back, I don't know. Do we have it for sure if Luka will or will not return?
I haven't heard anything.
I think it's up in the air still. I think that taking a little bit off of LeBron, I know Austin Reeves is back, but taking a little bit off of LeBron and Luka could significantly help them. I just want a LeBron championship, and then he retires so bad. And then the Timberwolves Nuggets was my favorite series of round 1. That series was crazy. That Daniels, what's his first name?
Jaden McDaniels.
He's a dog. I love him. But I don't know with Anthony Edwards out, this could be difficult for the Timberwolves to get past the Spurs and concussed Victor Wemby and Yana.
Yeah,
So
no, the West feels kind of more straight. Like it's hard, like as much as the Lakers, I think, impressed against the Rockets, and obviously we had our like, oh my God, LeBron's this guy. Like that was our major topic last week. Um, OKC's just been they feel very Terminator esque, right? Like but again, we look at the chaos on the Eastern side and the Western side. 1 seed, 4-0 sweep. I think they've won like either 16 or an egregious amount of first round games in a row, which is still not easy to do. Usually, a guy can pick off one game here and there. No, right? If we're not, I think Luka's out at least for game one. I don't know what his availability looks like. That also makes it a lot harder because that was a Rockets team that like had all the pieces, but was kind of weird, right? And like that playoff series, I think really exposed that. Like there's some weird vibes around there, all burner accounts aside, right? So like you have that going on. And then like I loved the Timberwolves Nuggets series. It's a series I highlighted when we came into this just to keep an eye on because they hate each other at this point.
yeah.
But there are too many people hurt for the Minnesota for me to really feel confident in that. Wembanyama and the Spurs have really figured it out. So that side again feels really chalk. I feel like we're walking into a Spurs Oklahoma City Western Conference Finals, which will be absolute cinema. I think that'll be that might be the best series in all of the playoffs, depending on how things go. Just with these two young cores clashing, these two stars, MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, possible MVP and Victor Wembanyama, least defensive player of the year, right? Um, that feels like absolute must-watch TV. And again, the East is just so chaotic. Like can you trust Detroit after that second half, of the series? Maybe. But what happens if the first half shows up? What happens if the first half of the series the Knicks shows up against 76ers? Even if Joel Embiid's not there. Like, there's a lot of chaos on the Eastern side. With the West side, it's harder for me to see those teams coming through. Maybe the Lakers, and if LeBron does that, oh my Lord. Yes, it would be awesome, but oh my Lord. There's going to be, I don't know what would happen. Especially Luka-less and a Thunder team that is just rolling. And that's the thing. They feel like they feel like the team to beat still. Even with all the chaos. It feels like the Thunder are the team to beat.
Well, I think if LeBron were to win that series and say he goes to the championship, he probably just retires at that point. He's like, there's no point anymore. Like, I just, guys, basketball's been fun, but clearly I'm too good for all you guys when you look at it. Yeah, I mean, look, the Spurs they're young, but they don't feel young for some reason. It just
Because
feels
Wemby
like
feels old.
yeah, they're just like a well-oiled machine. And they do have some veterans on their team when you look at it, but I think for the NBA too is you want OKC versus San Antonio. Like you want that, you need that, and you're hoping that that is the battle for the next 10 years on the Western Conference side. Yeah, the East is just all over the place. I mean, the Pistons scored and played really good today, but that's not been consistent for them. Cade had 32 points. Tobias Harris had 30 points. You don't really know. Trevor with a great point is Joel Embiid. He's hobbling up and down the court in certain times. They're like massaging his body every other time he doesn't play. He played a lot of minutes too in Game 7. So when you look at it, but of course the Raptors and Cavs are playing right now. Knicks and 76ers. Game 1 starts tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see kind of what goes on with Joel Embiid going to that Game 7. So having to play Saturday night, I'm sure they flew right to New York. So it'll be interesting to see there. Thunder and Lakers Game 1 is Tuesday, and then Spurs Timberwolves Game 1 is also tomorrow. So yeah, it's very fun, very interesting to look at it, and it is. You're kind of looking at OKC to win again, but you never really know what can happen. Nolan says, sad day as Celtics fans, but fuck the 76ers child's program. Let's go Pistons or Thunder for the money, Caleb. I mean, it's very true. We have a future of like, you guys do those futures where you pick like every sports champion or whatever.
Boy,
We have the Thunder are the champions in the one that we have. So we have the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl. We have Arsenal winning Champions League. I have no idea how that's going at all.
Boy.
And then we have the Thunder winning the NBA title. I think we have the Dodgers winning the World Series, France winning the World Cup, and then for some reason Luke told us to do Georgia football winning the national title. If we get to that point, I'll just cash out at that point because I do not believe in that one. But that's what we have going on. So we need the Thunder to win for that one. What
Well,
will finish first, the Arsenal or the Thunder, Jerry?
I think Arsenal in the Champions League because that's Tuesday is the semifinal, Tuesday and Wednesday. So then the finals a couple weeks after that. I can find out an answer for you.
There we go.
Yeah, but that also, as an Arsenal fan, they might sell you. I'm so sorry, lad. We were up 12 points in the Premier League race. Those who know, and now we are tied, basically. So.
Oh no, I hear it from Nolan and Luke all the time
Yeah,
that they're cursed. They are a cursed place. But Luke, here it is. Tuesday they have to win to go to final kill. So yeah, Tuesday. So I'll know about Arsenal.
Oh, Champions League is June. Oh, no, it's 2024. Can I just get the damn date? You know, all this AI stuff nowadays, and I still can't get a date on when the final game is. Oh my lord!
So
That's not helpful. I got the Women's Champions League if you want that. I don't know how crazy your guys'
give it to
bet
me.
is. Give me a second. I already skipped past that. Life goes on. We'll figure it out later. Oh, May 26th, May 30th. So I think the NBA playoffs go till June. So
yeah, they go. They don't start till June.
The finals, yeah. So. Yeah, Arsenal might sell you, bro. I'm so sorry, lad.
Like, you know, right now it was like a $5 bet. The cash out right now is $11. So we'll see.
Hey, man, sounds like profit. We are not sponsored, by the way.
It could be. No, we are also not Brendan Sorsby. Jerry, tell us about a prime opportunity that is happening in college sports. More importantly, college basketball. With Jeff Bezos's company. Hopefully, he does not overinflate into college sports like he did on his wife's plastic surgery. And it'd be fantastic. So, Jerry, you know what? You take the floor. Me and Trevor are just going to sit back, listen, and we'll ask some questions in between.
That's part of the fun, ain't it? This is like the once a month thing where I actually decided to do some work for this lovely podcast. Please sponsor us. Yes. Yeah, please sponsor us, by the way. This was tedious. But, as the people may have seen, this is one of those like smaller sports headlines that flew under the radar, at least in my mind. And is that next year, Duke basketball will be playing 3 games on Prime. The thing that you get everything shipped from. And we were talking about Jeff Bezos overinflating everything. That this is the exact company that we're talking about, right? So Thursday Night Football, we have some other games on this. And now, for the first time, at least in my mind, you're going to have some college basketball, and not just any college basketball, one of the bigger brands in the sport. But this is not, in my mind, as much Duke conversation as we move on. Like, let's talk about the 3 games here, because there's already some fun going on here. The first one is Duke UConn. These are all non-conference games, to be very clear. That's in Las Vegas. December 21st, Duke takes on Michigan at Madison Square Garden. Asterisks for a reason there. We'll get there in a second. February 20th, they go against Gonzaga in Detroit. These are the 3 games. They are, again, as you can see, none of them against ACC opponents. That's important. We don't know if the December 21st game is actually going to happen on Amazon Prime because this is supposed to be a Michigan kind of broadcast. So trying not to get too deep in the weeds, but last year, as you guys all remember, they played. That was on ESPN or ABC, somewhere on the ESPN family of networks. So I think the ACC kind of led that broadcast because the ACC works with ESPN and those folks. That's their major TV provider. As our Big Ten conundrum knows here, the Big Ten's kind of everywhere. Fox, NBC, all this and stuff. So they're kind of like the fight there, without getting too deep, is like, you don't have control over this game. So how are we doing on Prime? Besides the point. So even if it's 2 games, these 2 games will be on Amazon Prime, a completely separate and a deal worked out by Duke to not be on ESPN. The reason I bring this up is because I don't think that Duke basketball is that big of a deal. Oh my God, world ending, this and that. Media rights and broadcast rights have been pivotal, and in my mind, one of the biggest factors for conference realignment the last couple of years. And this moment right here signals to me what could be the future of our next realignment. But to prove my point, I made Caleb make more slides, right? Because I want to make Caleb work. if you want to look back at this, right, our last two big conference realignments have been because of TV networks, TV schedules, etc. So let's start back in 2012. This is when Mizzou and Texas A&M moved to the SEC from the Big 12. This is also you have Longhorn Network. We don't really want to talk about that. That's its own mess of problems, right? They move first, and then the years following, the Big 10 picks up Maryland, Rutgers, the ACC picks up Louisville and Syracuse. What's important to note at this time is in this 2012 world, one of the things that really matters to these conferences is actual television markets. So, when everyone asks, why is Missouri in the ACC? Why is Maryland in the Big 10? Why is Syracuse in the ACC? All three of these conference networks put themselves in the cable bundles. So if you're the SEC, you just expanded into St. Louis, Kansas City, and the whole state of Texas. That's Houston. That is Dallas. That is pick whatever major metropolitan area in Texas you want. Because A&M fans span throughout the state, because Missouri fans spanned throughout Missouri, those made sense realignment-wise for the SEC. Big Ten's the same thing, right? Maryland and Rutgers, you got the DMV. And that's in multiple major TV markets. The ACC, you expanded Kentucky, and you also expanded into New York with Syracuse. But that was the mover and shaker early. And this is where broadcast and everything played a part. But that was because of television. Now, let me ask you two a question. Do either of you pay for cable TV right now?
YouTube TV.
We have it, but I don't pay for it.
That's kind of the point. And that's what led to the next round of realignment. Because people like us, for the most part, don't have traditional cable. Instead, we stream, right? To Trevor's point, YouTube TV is kind of that pseudo in between.
Yeah.
We're going to call that streaming for now.
Yeah.
You can argue it's both, right? But in 2024, when we had the next major round, this is Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. This is the Big Ten picking up everybody from the West Coast and everywhere else fun, right? USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and the Pac-12 itself being left for dead. These were the biggest brands in the sports that were leaving their conference or moving on because when you wanted to get a subscription now, if you wanted to watch Texas baseball, you had to get ESPN Plus. If you wanted to watch Oregon basketball, now you had to get Fox Sports Plus or Peacock and all these other things. And as you guys all know, these games have moved on to streaming platforms, right? We talked about early in the show, Caleb, how Notre Dame was kind of like the first to throw a game on Peacock.
Yeah.
I would argue these two are very different because Notre Dame's its own world. We're friends with NBC, don't bother us. And so they kind of just use that to their advantage. They're one of the first stream pro teams in my mind, right, to kind of break that barrier. But maybe not for football immediately, but for a lot of these sports, you want to watch a SEC baseball game, you've got to go through ESPN Plus. You may catch it on ESPN. But, if you're a sad Missouri fan like me, because Missouri baseball is terrible, you're watching that on SEC Plus, and you may not be getting that on your cable package. But all these realignment and moves happen for certain reasons. What makes me so fascinated about Duke basketball deciding to move these games to Amazon is what does that mean for the conference they're in? And also the team that's doing it. All these other conference realignment things we just talked about were football based at the end of the day. Yes, there's other teams that were good for other sports, right? The Big Ten will tell you that they're winning the Olympic sports with this. That's not why they picked up Oregon. That's not why they picked up Washington. Let's all be adults, right? This is Duke basketball, which still, yes, big name, big brand, is one, not football. And two, is ESPN, I know they kind of worked out this deal where it's not a complete we'll just give those games away. They're going to have other games in the future that ESPN will get like prime broadcast opportunities for, etc. But before we know it, lads, the next round of realignment's right in front of us. And this conference that a lot of people are keeping an eye on is the one Duke's in. And a lot of people are curious, what will Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Syracuse, teams that are in the ACC that have already realigned once, what will they look like as people like Clemson, Florida State, Miami will probably look to greener pastures? Is this a situation? Is this enough money that keeps the ACC alive? It won't come from these broadcasts. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying that Duke's saving the ACC, right? But in my mind, does this open up a window where if you add in Prime, does that save the ACC? Or is it showing us right now in front of us that the cracks are bigger than even we can imagine? That ESPN's okay with letting these games go or working out some type of deal to lose not just any games, but big non-conference games. Mind you, again, that Michigan Duke game was one of the biggest regular season, if not the biggest regular season college basketball game, television-wise, all year. And again, television numbers and rights and all this shit is boring. It is. But it really is also the thing that pushes this sport to where it goes next, as we've kind of seen from the past decade to now. So the real question is, will this moment, this opportunity, be, in my mind, what saves the ACC, or is another show if it falls apart? That's my TED talk.
Great job, Jerry. Great
That was
job.
amazing, Jerry.
That was very good. And I will say too, so in that original realignment back in 2012, 2014, Texas and Oklahoma talked about going to the Pac-10 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have basically have killed the Big 12 back then, but they didn't end up doing it because the thought process is we'll have the LA market, we'll have the rising Texas markets, and then of course we'll have Oklahoma football. So this all could have happened more than a decade ago by killing a conference. And I just recently I remembered that the Big Ten had put out their numbers for what they just paid out to their schools for their contracts, and this really goes in line with what you were saying, Jerry. So the last years that the revenue was distributed out to Big Ten teams, they got this was from 2023 to 2024. Each school on average got $63.2 million. In the SEC, the average school got $52.6 million. And now the most recent numbers have come out. On average, Big Ten teams have gotten $76.1 million, and SEC schools have got $72.4 million. And this is also interesting with the ACC as well because, yes, they still have ESPN for football and basketball. They also have a deal with the CW, which is terrible because I don't know if anybody knows how to get to the CW all the time.
That's where Liv is too. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, so you have that, which that tells you right there the ACC is screwed. So you have that when then, you have the Big Ten they have Fox, they have CBS, they have NBC, going into, they also have the Big Ten Network, of course. And then the SEC is now all primarily on ESPN, ABC now. So it is very, very fascinating when you look at it. But you have schools like Ohio State who got paid $91.57 million last year from the conference, just based off of everything that went into it and also from them winning the championship. So yeah, I mean, it's very fascinating. It's one of those things that people always like, oh, why is this game on there? Why does this happen this way? It's because all these interworking things and the disputes that go on behind it all. But yeah, Amazon, look, they're diving into everything. They, of course, had NBA playoff games, of course, with NBA regular season games. They're getting their way into sports. A lot of these, TV networks are the only way to make money nowadays is live sports because that's what people watch. That's how you get viewers to go into things. And a lot of these streaming services, the numbers have not been the greatest. Peacock's numbers just came out and it's been awful. Is they put all sports on there to get those streaming services up to make you want to spend more money or get them more streaming service. So I have to have this to watch this. So yeah, Amazon is doing what they do. It's interesting that they're starting with Duke basketball, though, for college basketball. But hey, take it where you can get it, I guess.
No, I think the conference is what makes this most fascinating, right? Because yes, it's Duke and it's a big name, but it is a conference where the question marks continue to surround. Like a date, and it will really years we're keeping an eyeball on here. If we make it this far, obviously, it's 2030, 2031. Because right now, the buyout for a lot of the big ACC schools to get out of their current media rights deal continues to go down by $18 million until it hits $75 million at 2030 to 2031. That's a lot of fucking money, right? We were talking about Liv earlier. We were talking about all this money wasted. But if you're Clemson, if you are Florida State, if you are Miami, right? You're steps away from national title this year, and you are making 10 to 15 to 20 to $30 million less each year, depending on your contract, comparison to your Big Ten and SEC foe, that number becomes harder and harder to escape. And that one-time buyout could lead to longer-term payouts. So my question kind of is here, and we will not get this answer until life goes on, is will this be the type of thing that brings the ACC back up money-wise to keep the schools that make them the most money? One of the things that Florida State, Clemson, those folks are fighting for specifically was basically uneven payouts where the schools that contributed more in terms of eyeballs got more payments. That was one of the ways. So there's a lot of infighting within the ACC. But when we talk about the health and the problems and the concerns, one of the things I think a lot of fans are getting tired of is constant realignment, is the loss of games that matter to people, that these conferences get bigger and you're creating great week matchups, right? Like week 5, you can have some awesome helmet to helmet games, but then you lose rivalries. If you are a fan that lives close to your favorite team or is in that college town, you may lose the games you care about the most for games that might get more eyeballs, right? Again, as a Missouri fan, we always look to Missouri, Kansas, right? Or Missouri, Iowa State, Missouri, Kansas State, games that on television numbers are not going to beat even Missouri, Georgia, because Georgia fans will show out for those games, right? If Mizzou's your constant, Georgia will get you more eyeballs than Kansas State. But if you care about who you're playing more, we have more history with a Kansas State, obviously Kansas, and Iowa State, which is a trophy game, a rivalry game. So, is this a moment that the ACC can take advantage of and use maybe basketball now, and then maybe you start sneaking in football games? Maybe that's where you find your Virginia Tech, Virginia game at the end of the year if they're both 6-6 and struggling. Who knows, right? Or pick whatever game that's in the CW world, move to Amazon Prime, and they get $15 million more to do it, right? So, and who knows by this point what is that motivating factor? Because even between 2012 and 2024, right, how different those two motivating factors were into leading to our massive realignment were very different. Even if it was still the television companies, what they cared about and what they were paying for is very different. So I'm very curious because, not just an ACC fan or someone who appreciates the ACC, if the ACC is to fall, this sport will look extremely different. It looked extremely different after the Pac-12 fell. And I know the Pac-12 is back, but it's not the same Pac-12 we know. It will not make the same money the Pac-12 used to, right? And all those other things. So, this feels like a weird moment, and it could be nothing. Duke could just make a lot of money from this and walk away and just be Duke. But if Duke's left hanging out there and pick whatever big schools in the ACC, move to the Big Ten, SEC, one of those two, where do they go, right? Duke's a great question mark. North Carolina's a great question mark. Wake Forest is a question mark. Stanford's a question mark, right? Like, could this be a good thing? Or is this kind of just oh my God, it's getting that bad? Time will tell.
We're going to have super conferences. That's facts. We're going to have super conferences just like we're probably going to have 24 teams in the college football playoff because it's all about money. What it's always about. That's what makes the world go round.
Well, and like 8 million teams in the March Madness, too. We haven't even talked about that at all.
Yeah, no, 76 teams expansion, right? It's it's a joke because it's all about making more money. How can we make more money? That's what it comes down to. Everything is about that.
By the way, talking about money, please sponsor us.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But I mean that is basically what the world goes round for. Of course, we see it. Live wasn't making a profit. You're done, and if these schools aren't making more money than all the other schools, when you look at it, and it's the other factor playing into it too is NIL. You need more money to operate these schools and these programs in these different sports when it comes to football and basketball, especially. So it is very, very interesting when we look at it. Jerry, of course, that was great. Nolan says, thank you for the great insight as always, Jerry. Nolan says, Caleb need to call the bank and give raises to you hardworking gents. Yeah, of course. We're grinding. We're doing everything we can. We're balling out of control. And if we do start making money off of this program, we will not end up like Brendan Sorsby and throw it all down the toilet. So some of us won't. Yeah, of course
we're going to invest in AI to keep our stock going high. Actually,
yeah, we could do that. We could actually do make it like AI kind of does the show for us or whatever. Those creepy things.
AI me, AI Trevor. Caleb will keep his job. He'll take us out of the equation. It's real capitalism, baby.
It's cheaper, yeah. That's what you do.
Son of a gun.
AI Trevor bot will go crazy.
That would be pretty fire.
It would be.
I would fall in love with it.
Trevor falls in love with his own AI bot.
Yeah.
I mean, it could happen.
Before we cut to black, I'd like to tell you guys about my day yesterday. So I went to Jerry's favorite place in the world yesterday, beaches, Caleb.
Jerry's favorite place in the world. Did you go to Chicago? Of course.
Didn't go to Chicago. His favorite place in the world is kind of sarcastic.
Oh, Kalamazoo, of course.
Kalamazoo. I was in Kalamazoo yesterday. And me and my fiance had signed up for, well, I didn't sign up for anything. Let's just get that out of the way first. This is all behind my back. 7-hour Lamaze class.
Wow,
And,
7 hours.
7 hours. Apparently, this is a thing that's supposed to be broken up into multiple days. My fiance was like, let's just knock it all out one day.
It's
Did
a
not-
work day.
I worked yesterday, yes. So got to Kalamazoo 9 in the morning. We did the and so I'm very good at that now. Did different instructions and stuff, but then came the videos. Gents. The videos are burned in my brain. I know everyone's like, well, you got to get ready for it. But we watched multiple women on video go give birth, and it wasn't PG. I'll just tell you that right now.
You got every angle.
It was like National Geographic in there, dude. They put the graphic in National Geographic. So we just, fully nude women, pregnant women, legs up, going for it, dude. They showed a very graphic image of what crowning looks like.
Oh yeah,
And I know all about crowning because remember I had to leave the podcast because of a similar incident.
Yeah, some would call it a turtle. Yeah.
Yeah, a turtle head. Yeah, I was crowning in a different way, but we saw what actual crowning looks like. That was pretty terrible. But yeah, just so 7 hours for about 4 of those hours, just the most graphic videos I've ever seen in my life. I watched several women give birth. And it made me feel a little bit queasy. I think I could have dealt with one woman giving birth, being my fiance. And but hours of it gets to you, man. It gets to you watching over and over. We kept seeing the same things. We kept getting taught the same things. And it was scary, guys. There was a lot of, but also it gives you a new appreciation for the woman's body.
Yeah,
we're feminists on here.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I mean, if you watch 4 hours of it, of course, how couldn't you?
So yeah, and then we went to a gas station. Terrified I was going to get mugged. It was terrifying. Kalamazoo, Jerry, it's scary up there, dude. But there's also parts of Kalamazoo that are actually pretty nice. Where
every town has it.
Stuff is.
Yeah. Of course, one strip of it.
We went to a gas station, and they had kind of like Porky's, where they had like all the fried food and stuff.
Yeah.
There was just a black backpack sitting out, and I was like, "What could possibly be in that backpack?" It was just sitting right next to the door.
Oh, you should have grabbed the backpack.
I was scared, dude. I was like, could be a bomb, could be murder evidence. But yeah, I was worried about getting mugged. It was a little rough over there. There was a homeless woman walking down the street arguing with herself.
Shock.
That was pretty scary.
Was she asking the question, why did I pick Kalamazoo to be homeless in?
She probably was. Why am I here?
Why? Homeless in this place? So my daughter is going to be born in Kalamazoo. Now, Jerry, I know you're not going to be a fan of that one.
You got to do what's best for the family. I will always support that more than anything.
I was born in Kalamazoo. I will say that.
Okay. Well,
diamonds in the rough.
Yep,
Jerry,
right.
that was one of the cons of giving birth in Kalamazoo, is that I knew you wouldn't be very fond of it. But
I am very wildly concerned that you thought about me in this process at all.
That
is
terrifying. Immediate. I was like, what is Jerry going to think about this?
That's terrifying.
But I knew Nolan and Luke would be happy about it. So,
yeah, I have a couple questions about this Lamaze class, or how they say it.
Oh my God.
I have 2. Did you get a lunch break for the work day that you put in?
That's where we went to the gas station where I was getting mugged.
So you did get a lunch break. And did you have to pay for this 7-hour class?
Well, the government paid for our
nice.
Lamaze class. But if you did not get some sort of financial support, then you would have had to pay for this. Yes,
Mm,
and there. I
yeah.
mean, I'm assuming some of the people were in there. You're also with like 8 other couples, all watching like this lecture, and me and Kennedy were by far the farthest along. They're all like 31, 30. My girlfriend is almost 39 weeks pregnant, which is like it only goes to 40 really. So they're
So
like,
she's
so
learning
how
at
was
the end.
at the very end? We got it right in the end. The nurse lady that was teaching it, she's like, I've never taught this and someone has gone into labor, so that would be a first. I was a little worried, dude. A lot of the massages and different things I was helping her do, those they were like, this is supposed to open the pelvis so the baby's head, and I'm like, I don't know if we want to do that right now. That might be go time. But I was like, we are in the hospital, so we were like in the basement of the hospital. Very creepy to walk around in the basement halls of a hospital.
Which hospital, Borges or Bronson?
Bronson.
Mm,
What about that? What do you think about that, Caleb?
I mean, I was born in Borges, so.
Oh, that's where
Yeah,
the elite go to be
I was a
born.
Borges baby, of course.
Borges elitism.
The dude offered me a Slim Jim.
In the class or like at the gas?
Yes, in the class,
Okay.
which I did take. I did take the Slim Jim.
She's
we
watching
put
most
on-
graphic shit of your life. And you turn around and got a Slim
I
Jim.
was like, oh my god. He was like, hey bro, you want a Slim Jim? He just like nudged me. You want a Slim Jim?
Yes, this helps me through
Yes,
this
I want a
watching
Slim
of the
Jim.
Crowning.
Of course, I wanted a Slim Jim, and then I had the issue of like trying to open it. You know, you kind of rip off like the side, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
damn it, I gotta go to the other end, and then you go to bite it, and that's not working. So now it's like wet, and you're still, you know. What else happened? We put on the pregnancy vest. To the men did it to simulate what it feels like to carry around pregnancy. Tanked it. Easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I did a full-on squat and everything. Tanked it. Absolutely tanked it.
You should have said, this is me after 12 beers.
They're like, do a squat. Absolutely ate it up. One dude went to do a squat. He said, I didn't say it was easy. I knew the crowd. I was like, I'm just gonna be like, oh wow, that was pretty difficult. But between us, tanked it. The dude though, he was like, that's very easy. And then when he squatted, I've never heard someone's knees click so loud.
Unathletic. That guy's unathletic.
It was like his knees went like made the loudest popping sound I've ever heard in my life. And he was like, that was easy. And this dude, he was like, your knees disagree with you.
We had some chirping going on in the
Yeah, there was a bit of chirping.
Were you guys chirping before or after the trauma?
This was this was before.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a little bit of camaraderie building because then we all had to face the trauma of giving birth. There was a lot of I couldn't believe how like much they showed. Because like imagine you go to a Lamaze class and you know there's a woman fully, you know, exposing yourself to the world and you go, hey, isn't that Jenny, our next door neighbor? Like, and then you just full on saw this lady, like, I don't know. And then they were like breastfeeding. I get it when you're like giving birth, but then they were like showing them breastfeeding at home after they've given them birth, and it's like full boob. And I was like, bro, like, why are we showing these ladies' boobies on the like to the world right now? Like, you can just show like a little.
You're like, this
cartoon,
is
like,
not
this
how
is
I
weird.
like to view boobs, is what you were thinking to yourself.
Yeah, that is yeah, you don't like to view boobs that way. There was nothing about it. Now I was telling my girlfriend or fiance, I was like, dude, there's some dudes who are probably like, that's awesome. And like loved every second of it.
Probably. There always is.
You know what I mean? Like some dudes like we were talking about some dudes are just like attracted to pregnant women.
Yeah, they are,
like,
dude. That
they
is
don't
definitely
like
a
normal
thing.
women. They
They
just
like pregnant women. Yeah, it's weird. That is
I
so
love
weird.
I love my fiance. I love everything about her. But like I'm not, you know, just the pregnancy thing isn't like once she's done being pregnant, I'm not gonna be like, we're done here. I miss you when you were pregnant. You know what I mean? Like
Gotta get you knocked up again.
yeah, exactly. But no, it was I was a bit nervous. I was like, what could we possibly learn for 7 hours? But I would say it was informationally packed. We did get lost. Oh, there was a couple, they were in the same Lamaze class, and we were both kind of lost. We didn't know where to go. And they went into like a hallway to go to this other exit door. That door was locked. When they had shut the door, that door also locked. If it wasn't for me and Kennedy, they would have been stuck in this hallway. So I had a bit of a God complex there for a second. I was like, I could just let these people just sit in this hallway, and they'd be stuck there. And they seemed like a socially awkward, anxious group. So I was like, they're not grabbing the phone and calling for help. They're gonna try to figure this out. So I had a bit of a God complex there for a second, but we did let them in. My fiance did, not me. But yeah, it was 7 hours in Jerry's favorite place in the world. They did have, my girlfriend loves Mediterranean. My fiance loves Mediterranean food, and it wasn't too bad. We got some good Mediterranean food up there. We had a waitress. Her eyes were golden.
Golden eyes.
Yeah, it freaked me out.
Contacts or natural?
I think it was natural. I thought I had the contact thing go through my head too, but it was looking at a cat, kind of. It felt like that.
So long story short, as I'm here, is you went to Kalamazoo and left with life-altering trauma that you'll never forget.
Of course.
Yeah, that's that basic. That's how everyone leaves.
Average experience.
Yeah, that's the average.
Yeah, I mean it's the zoo, K-Zoo,
It is.
Kalamazoo.
You gotta mean to have fun.
Yeah, you need a lot of things. Trevor got to look at vagina and was not impressed.
I mean, dude.
I don't think impressed is the right word.
No, yeah.
Not excited, I would say.
I was not excited, but I was kind of impressed because they showed a diagram and it's like, your cervix starts like this.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like, when you're giving birth, it's like, I was like, I looked at my fiance, oh my God. You're poor, you know what?
Yeah, of course.
It was basically softball size.
Never be the same.
I was like, if I was her, I was like, I would ask for every drug and then I'd have them cut me open and I wouldn't even push it out. But, she's like, I want to go as long as possible without doing any of the pain things. And I don't want a C-section. I was like,
wow. She's a warrior.
I don't know if I can do that. She is a warrior.
She's a warrior. They do say that there is women do want a natural, they do want to have the natural birth. They feel.
That was one of the ladies in the video. We got to see what her natural birth looked like. It almost made me lose my lunch, dude.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is funny.
She was going through it.
It is funny though that they have you watch those, and it's what you're going to experience is completely different because that's going to be your child.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, hey, watch Susie, watch Susie give birth to her child, in it. But no, it's I'm glad you had a work day yesterday. Learning about babies, Lamaze. 7 hours Lamaze. Yeah, I didn't think that was a thing. I thought they broke it up.
They did, but you know how my fiance rolls.
You know what? You got it done and over with.
We have nothing to do. Then she's going to schedule a 7 hours Lamaze class. So
you don't have to worry about it anymore.
We forgive you for missing the NHL playoffs.
Thank you. This is all worth it. I do have. It's 2-1. Montreal is beating Tampa Bay 2-1.
Wow.
I almost didn't know what MTL stood for.
Okay. It's Montreal.
Of
course. But yeah, so no, it's a very fascinating. I'm glad I didn't have to watch those videos. I probably would have thrown up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was rough.
I would have thrown up the Kalamazoo part. I would have thrown up the 7 hours, and I would have thrown up the watching random women give birth to children.
Not a Saturday too, nonetheless.
On a Saturday, on Kentucky Derby Saturday, I would have been a no-go for me, dog.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of the most exciting 2 minutes of sports.
Yeah.
It literally is the opposite.
Wow. Trevor, thank you for that story. That was actually,
of course,
very, very fascinating. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Trevor, speaking of it, maybe he will have a child by the time we do this show.
That could be a real possibility.
So we will be on standby from that. Of course, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and it'll be interesting to see if Brandon Sorsby kind of goes down from there. We'll get more answers maybe on that and other things going on in the wide world of sports. As always, thanks for watching.
Peace.